Okay, what I wanted to say is that when I first started this podcast, I didn't really have a full idea what I wanted to do with it. All I knew is that I've been trying out this comedy thing for a while, and I wanted a platform where I could experiment with some ideas, I could potentially grow a network with people, and, maybe even one day be interviewing people. I mean, that's the dream, right? I want to talk to some more creative minds. And when you are presenting yourself as a comedian, you go through a process of understanding the kind of person that you are, or even the person that you want to be. Part of that process is a very strange, confrontational experience, because you're trying to, in your 20s, you're already trying to find out who you are as a person, as a human being, but then also to have this side path of trying to entertain people and understanding what kind of performer you want to be. Now, it would be natural for most people, and, myself included, to look at other people who have succeeded as comedians and to see what worked well for them. Now, the tricky part of that is that they're not you. They don't exactly have your exact sense of humor. In fact, you've never existed before. You have never been on this planet before, so how are you going to figure out what works for yourself if there's never been an example of that happening? And that's the reality of this. We're all so unique, and we all have our own truths and stories to tell. And what's most important is growth and becoming the best version of yourself. Now, there's no sure way of knowing what way works. You don't know what type of experimentation works for you unless you try it yourself. And this podcast was definitely one of those endeavors where I started not knowing what it was. Even the first 2 episodes, I didn't even have a name for it. So I kind of just, just made light jokes about how I didn't have a name. And I put this Lord of the Rings poster. I'm sitting on it. Don't sit on it, Aaron. My gosh, you paid for this. Well, if you're listening to this, this is really not helpful, but if you're watching, I used to have this sign. It says no admittance except on, it still says laughter business, but it should say party business. Now, I love Lord of the Rings, so when I was in Old Hobbiton, I had to get this. Not the point, Aaron. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know what to call it, so I made light of it. I eventually was having some conversations with people and wondering to myself, what do I actually call this thing? I mean, I should call it something that's personal and somehow related to my personality. Or, and at that point, I didn't really know what the podcast was, talking about. And in the last 2 episodes, I definitely felt like it went to a place of honesty and vulnerability, where it wasn't just a comedy podcast. It was an expression of myself. And I've done vlogs before in the past, but to have this platform is such an amazing experience. And I've already had a really great reception from the podcasts that I have released. And to be honest, since doing this podcast, I have been having the most amazing conversations with people, and then having this avenue to process those conversations into topics and into themes and ideas, and for me to explore it is really compelling. Even just, last episode, just saying I'm looking into therapy. And there's, I think especially nowadays, there's so much stigma around mental health and about, being vulnerable and talking about your struggles. I think, it's definitely better than it used to be, but we still need more voices. And I'm not saying that I am any crazy special voice that's gonna solve any riddle that we haven't already solved before. But I think that when more voices are part of the conversation is stronger. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to be loud. Neighbors must really enjoy me.